Hello and welcome back for part one of this series of fundraising at Europa School UK. In this first part, we're going to speak a bit about the school context and how it impacts on the current requirements and needs of the school. In order to do this, we need to go back in time to before Europa School existed. And this site was used by the European School. The European School was different to Europa School in many ways, and this shaped the infrastructure of the school and the spaces that exist in the school. So when the European School closed, Europa School took on the premises and took on the site, but it had to change the site and change many of the existing infrastructure. So in order to speak about this in more detail, first, we need to mark some of the differences between the European School and Europa School. The first one being the size of the school. Europa School is a lot larger in terms of its student population. I asked Susie, our receptionist, who has been here for many, many years and was here during the time of the European School. I asked her at its heyday, how many students were there in the school? And again, this is from reception or nursery, as it was called then, all the way to S7 in secondary. And she said at its most, it was probably 850 students. Now, if we compare that to how many students we have now at Europa School, it's quite a vast difference. So at Europa, just in primary alone, we have 630 students. And in secondary, we have around 482. Now, these numbers can fluctuate depending on students that come and students that go. But when I checked most recently on our school census information, we had 1,109 students in the whole school. So as you can see, a lot larger. And this actually doesn't take into account the fact that we still have room to expand and to grow, particularly in the secondary school, as we open up a new stream language. So potentially, by 2028, we will have another 630 students in the secondary school. So a lot larger, and this also includes class sizes being larger, and this has a direct impact, which I'll discuss in a little bit. The second difference is we have a extra language. In the European school, there was no such thing as a Spanish stream. And actually, when Europa School first opened, it opened with a French and a German stream. So every year we are opening up a new Spanish class. And this not only impacts the fact that the school is getting larger every year, but it also needs a lot of physical room for these classes to go. And the other way that we're different is that European school used to do the European Baccalaureate and we do the International Baccalaureate. While they both have baccalaureate in the title, they're actually two very different programs. And the IB has a very large element of hands-on experimental learning, which requires a lot of unique and specialized classrooms in order to achieve this International Baccalaureate. So I'm going to discuss why these differences have led to challenges in more detail. Firstly, during the 10-year closure period of the European School, the Department of Education did not maintain the school site at all. And whilst they have started to rectify it, and some of it was rectified since 2017, there's actually still a lot of areas where this hasn't been rectified, and we now have to try and fix by ourselves out of our own budget. And this is directly linked to spaces, to infrastructure, and does have an impact on the school. The second one, which I touched on briefly in the previous slide, is space. So just to give you some personal context about when I was a student at the European School, there was very much smaller class sizes, to the point where doing German as my second language, as it was called back then, in my final years of school, I took history and geography in German in my second language, and I was one of two students in my class. And this was kind of the norm. Class sizes were a lot smaller. And this meant that the school has a lot of quite small classrooms dotted around the site. And so, one of the challenges when Europa opened is actually the creation of larger classrooms and also the creation of more classrooms in order for our students to fit and be taught. And that has definitely been one of the biggest challenges. And I will show you in a couple of slides some of the ways that we have tried to rectify this in the previous couple of years. The last one is that we are in an older, very, very beautiful, but older building. And so, actually, a lot of the adjustments we need to make to class sizes and a lot of these new specialized areas we need to create in order to teach the IB, we need to be really careful of what we're doing to the school site and protected areas, and also making sure that whatever we do or create is sustainable in the long term. This also has impacts on the infrastructure of the site, and making sure that everything is still up to date and still working well. So those are kind of some of the challenges. And now I want to discuss some projects that we have worked on in the last couple of years. So we have created new learning areas, which are specialized for specific purposes. So one of these is the creation of the Sixth Form Centre, which gives our IB students a place to collaborate, to work together, with lots of different seating options, lots of different resources in there, so that they have a dedicated space to study and prepare for their IB. The second, which is one of our most recent projects, is the opening of the Mediathek in primary. This took the old primary library and completely repurposed it, creating a really amazing space where, as you can see in the photo, half of the room can be used for classroom ICT style lessons. The other half is a really cozy and beautiful book area. This Mediathek is used during school hours, but also after school, as we have amazing parent volunteers who staff it, and it's used as a library. So this is one area and one space which opened last summer and is really, really appreciated and used extensively by our primary students. And an example of a room which was created for the purpose of delivering the IB is the design room and the pottery studio. The design and art elements of the IB were not taught previously in the European school. And so this meant that the creation of a design room and a new pottery studio, which has been moved and a lot of work has been put into design and making it really useful and really a great space, needed to happen. So these are three projects which we have recently completed. Longer term and linking to that issue of space that I mentioned at the beginning, especially in primary, as this is where each year we have grown by a Spanish class. We have created 4 new primary classrooms. And the classes that are in them are now 6EE, 6FE, 6DE, and 4DE. We've also enlarged 2 classrooms in order to create more space for 30 students, and those are the classrooms of 4FE and 4EE. So there has been a lot of movement and making sure that classrooms are big enough and are appropriately sized for our students. So thinking ahead at the future, we are going to have a new primary building. This is a really exciting project, which you might have heard about already. But there has been some delays with the creation of this build. Luckily, this now is under a new contract, and the design for the new building will start in April. The completion date is meant to be in 2026. However, we all know this can vary and delays do happen, especially in new builds. But this new building is really exciting because it will replace all of the classrooms in what we call the huts area of the school, which were meant to be temporary classrooms and turned not so temporary. Even during the time of the European school, these temporary classrooms existed and were then replaced by other temporary classrooms. So we're really excited to find a new permanent home for these 8 classrooms, and this building will be purpose-built for the needs of these year groups that will be housed there. The other exciting potential future project is the extension of our nursery provision. Mrs. Wood, our head teacher, spent a lot of time applying for a government grant, and this would allow the preschool that runs on our school site, Kiddie Linguistics, to expand their operations. Because it is a government grant, the school would actually not have to put money into this creation. So it would be really beneficial. And we will keep everybody updated on the success of the grant. The red writing, if you look at this map, all of the words that are in red in this building are the spaces that Kiddie Linguistics currently has. And when we're looking to expand and reconfigure, are those green spaces. So we would have the creation of another large educational open space, reconfiguration to make some offices and a new cloakroom and some more toilets. So those are rather exciting future projects. Thank you so much for listening and watching the video. And please do join me for part 2, where I discuss the capital campaign. Thank you. Bye.